Cropland genetics. Looks like this farmer must be testing crops from a few different producers. I'm assuming that the genetics moniker on that sign meant that the crops are genetically modified. I don't have a problem with genetically modified crops per se. What I do have a problem with, though, is companies using their government protectionist patents on their genetically modified crops, along with the government court system, and bullying, harassing, and extorting other farmers. What happens is this. A company gets a patent from the government on a genetically modified crop they've developed. The company then plants the genetically modified crop in their fields. The genetically modified pollen or seed is then blown into neighboring farmers' fields by the wind. And if the wind was anything close to how it is here today, it's easy to see how that can happen. The neighboring farmer's non-genetically modified crop is thus contaminated by the genetically modified pollen or seed. The company collects samples to prove that there's now genetically modified crop in the neighboring farmer's field, and then either extorts money out of the farmer or files a lawsuit against them claiming patent infringement. While I think it's a scummy, despicable business practice on the part of the companies that decide to engage in it, I think it's even more of an indictment of the government systems in place which allow them to do that. Namely, government patents and the government court system. Government patents supposedly exist to protect somebody's so-called intellectual property. The problem is that intellectual property is not really property. It's just a made-up government construct. And it's in direct contradiction to real physical property. If I see or hear about an idea based on a patent that somebody claims to have, and I subsequently build something with my own two hands based on that idea, which is now in my head, then even if it's exactly like the original item, the patent holder shouldn't have ownership of my item, since my item is my private property. That's why physical property and intellectual property can't coexist. And physical property always trumps ownership of ideas, which is what intellectual property in effect really is. And as far as the government courts in this case, if there's no intellectual property, then there's nothing to take the farmer to court over. I would like to ask this final question regarding the companies that engaged in that business practice of lawsuits. How were they able to collect evidence to prove that the farmer violated their so-called intellectual property if they didn't first enter the farmer's land, steal his crop, and thus violate the farmer's real physical property? The ends justify the means to them, I guess? Today, when I went into a convenience store, I met a guy who said he's been seeing me all summer long. He said he's seen me in Baker, in Miles City, and even as far west as his home in White Sulphur Springs, Montana, which is over 600 miles from here. I walked just over 20 miles today. Here's my GPS position. Oh yeah, I just realized I forgot to sign in today. I'm Will Buchanan, and this is the Walk for Liberty. And it is, or was, day 123, August 31st, 2008. And now this is Will Buchanan for blog.walkforliberty.com, signing out.